Because if it can be used for 1 or 2 here or there, or 10 or 20 foreigners here or there, or 50 or 100 more, when push comes to shove, they will use those powers against us. So this is very, very important, although it's not on many people's radar screen. The protection of civil liberties and the protection of our right in courts is so crucial that we have to make sure that the members of Congress get our attention and say, look, protect the rights of all suspects. You say, no, we're dealing with criminals and we're dealing with terrorists. They don't deserve any rights. That isn't it. They're all suspects. When they're convicted of something, yes, you can do your punishment. Just think, the individuals that were responsible for the bombing of the towers in 1993 were all captured, prosecuted under our laws, and put in prison. That is not an excuse for us to go out and round up people and accept the notion that we can invade countries, develop a program called preventative war, and do whatever we want. No, we must realize that it is crucial that we have protection in court, even for those people that look like they're fairly guilty. Because today, there are a few of us already that we hear about in the country. Yes, they're in prison because they're defending the Constitution on monetary issues and tax issues. So our job is really gigantic as I see it. But I also believe that we are on the verge of seeing some dramatic changes. I don't believe for a minute that we have turned the corner of this economy. Right now, if you listen to the business stations, they talk it up and everything is starting to come back again. And the unemployment rate, we only lost 500,000 jobs last week instead of 550,000 jobs. And that is a sign of growth. So, I don't think we'll leave that in Washington. They keep doing the same thing over and over again. But one of the main reasons is there's very few people in Washington who have ever heard the term Austrian economics, free market economics. And that is one of the problems. But there's a lot more now than there used to be. And I am very pleased with that. That is where I have a lot of hope. I do not have a lot of hope with what is happening in Washington, but I do have a lot of hope with what's happening, especially on the many campuses I've gone to during the campaign as well as since then. The young people are really, really interested. And they're the ones who are inheriting this. And they're the ones who will have to deal with this. They're going to have to wonder how debt gets liquidated and how we get back on our feet again and what the laws ought to be and how the market works. They have to address some serious fundamental facts, though. We have a medical crisis in this country. And they say, well, everybody comes to the conclusion, well, we just don't have enough government. We need, government to take care of it. But they never ask the one question, which is, I think, key. Do you have a right to free medical care? No. But people in Washington think that everybody has a right to free medical care. They have a right to free education, but they never ask the question, who are we going to steal it from? They don't ask that. But we are going to be forced to ask those questions, and I think that we have that opportunity. And the people in Washington will still need an awakening. And we will be able to achieve a lot if we continue to do what we're doing. But I don't see a gradual, graceful transition. I wished it were so. I wished all of a sudden we'd get 100, 200 more people in Congress and we would do the right voting and gradually. I don't think it would be that bad. If we all of a sudden had the right monetary policy and balanced the budget, if you get into trouble financially and you're in big debt, you quit spending, you try to pay off your debt, you try to save some money, you work harder. But it's exactly the opposite of what the government said. They say, oh, debt is good, and don't let the prices go down, and we'll keep taxing you. I mean, everything is absolutely backwards. But we need to make sure that they get the message about free market economics and understand why, if you truly care about people, if you truly care about people having medical care, if you truly care about people getting a real education, you have to have a lot less dependency on the government. You have to have more dependence on yourself, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your churches, your local communities. Then we might be able to solve the problem. But if the dependency is on, you know, the local government, the state government, the federal government, and world government, there's not a chance in the world that we could win this. But fortunately for us, we've had a good history, at least reasonably good and better than the rest, because we had an understanding about what personal liberty is about, how important it is to have private property. At least for 100 years or so, we didn't have an income tax and we had honest money. So it's not like we're inventing something brand new. We can certainly improve on what we had, but at least it's not brand new. Other countries might not have had that experience. So if we just could get this thing turned around and move that direction, and there should be a lot of hope for the fact that we could get people to listen to us when that time comes. That means we each have a role to play. We each have a role to play, whether it's just at home studying and protecting yourself, educating your family, educating your friends and your community, joining groups, joining the Campaign for Liberty, running for office, supporting good candidates, but knowing what you're doing. I mean, just to be involved. So often I have so many people come to my office in Washington, young people. They get excited and they like what I'm talking about. They say, well, how can I be a congressman? And I said, that's the last thing you should be wanting to be. It could be helpful, but that shouldn't be the goal. If the goal is to be in office, then all of a sudden your standards change. You say, well, what do I do? How do I raise money? How do I work my way up the ladder? And what do I do to get into office? Being in office was more like a fluke for me. I mean, I spoke out and habit came along, and it was as much surprise to me as anything. But the real purpose is to understand what we're doing and to understand free market economics. But I do think there are a couple of rules that we should follow, whether it's in campaign or whether we're campaigning in Campaign for Liberty or whatever. I have, in my efforts in Washington, taken a position which is not a compromising position. I think that my role, at least as I see it, and I decided to be, is that if there is a position such as like obeying the Constitution, you don't have a right to free medical care, is to vote it and defend it 100%.
Yeah! Yeah!
Others will say, no, what you need to do, if there's a bill up there for $100 million, get an amendment and give a grand talk and whittle it down to $99 million. And I don't get any excitement out of that. Because the point is, it's all wrong. If you concede a little bit of the welfare warfare state of 1%, it doesn't seem much like that's where it starts. You concede 100% of the principle, and therefore then it's going to grow. You don't have a moral defense of the issue then if you concede that much. But I think that being precise and knowing what you believe in and perseverance can win out in the end. They've made a few articles that have sort of poked fun at me about, oh yeah, he's been around a long time saying that thing about the Federal Reserve and sound money, but now they're giving me a little bit of credit and saying, yeah, and why is there more credibility? Because of you. Because they point out in the past, yeah, he'd get like 10 or 15 people support the bill and it went nowhere. But now, for two reasons. One, the point that Hillary made. Your people are all over the place and they're determined.